So Sony is planning on redesigning the PlayStation 5 in order to use less silicon parts, thus being able to produce more units and get them into the hands of actual gamers and not the bots and scripts of scalpers. Let's get this thing. Alrighty guys, share my screen. I have an article pulled up here with some pretty highlights. This will be cited or sourced down there in the description below, as I do anytime I cover any kind of news in the gaming community or industry. And this is relatively exciting news, but I wouldn't get too excited just yet, as this won't take effect for quite some time and probably won't actually be beneficial this year in 2021. Despite Sony reportedly record-breaking sales figures for the PlayStation 5 thus far, the PS5 restock situation has gotten so bad that the Japanese firm is contemplating redesigning the console to cope with demand. Now, let me make this clear. This is not a midlife refresh design. This is not a PS5 Slim or a PS5 Pro. Those models most likely will be coming out about 2/3 to halfway through the PlayStation 5's life cycle. And this potential redesign comes courtesy of Sony CFO, or Chief Financial Officer, Hiroki Totoki. Say that 3 times fast, my goodness. He says the shortage of semiconductors is one factor, but there are other factors that will impact the production volume. So at present, we'd like to aim at second year sales of 14.8 million, which was the second year of the PS4. So basically what Sony's trying to do is sell more units of PlayStation 5s within the first year than they did with 2 years of the PlayStation 4, which did sell absolutely phenomenally. So we're going to be changing the design, streamlining the amount of silicon used in the console. For example, we might find a secondary resource, or by changing the design. So changing how the PlayStation 5 is manufactured to reduce PCBs, printed circuit boards, silicon parts, less components, which would be beneficial. However, stripping away all of these internals, these components, is most likely going to degrade the performance of the PS5. So what they're talking about is most likely going to be a slightly weaker, less high performance model of a PS5. So maybe like a PS5 Lite or something like that. And they're talking about finding a secondary resource. So maybe finding perhaps finding different sources or vendors for them to get their components that they put into their console, as obviously Sony doesn't produce all of their components in-house. They assemble them, they patent it, they do the QC phase, the quality control phase, to make sure everything's not busted out of the box, and then they ship it off to the consumer. But as far as like components, I mean, every company does this during the manufacturing process. They get a bunch of parts from China and whatnot. So maybe they will find other resources for their components. And the whole purpose of this would be to allow Sony to produce more consoles. And for those that already have a PlayStation 5, they will own a unique first edition system with extra silicon and such probably additional features. I'm trying to think of what they could strip away from the PlayStation 5 that people don't really use or care about. And I can't really think of anything. Like, the only thing that came to mind at first was like the Tempest Audio 3D engine, but that actually is incredibly beneficial as well, especially if you have the Pulse 3D headset, because it works hand in hand with the new Tempest audio engine on board the PS5. So PS5 exclusive games, or I say exclusive games that are remastered or playable on the PS5 that take advantage of that audio engine. For example, Miles Morales, Sackboy, and Astro's Playroom actually sound really good. So I can't really think of it. You're not going to take ray tracing capability out of it. You're not going to lower the potential frame rate of your games. So I'm trying to think of, if Sony can produce a console that performs identical to what they have now, but it requires less components to build, so they're able to produce more units, that'd be awesome. But that's kind of a pipe dream. That's kind of unrealistic. That's kind of not how this works. I mean, I guarantee you when they were designing the PS5, they weren't thinking like, how can we put more silicon parts? How can we increase our production costs? Like, they probably already have a pretty stripped down console, so they're going to have to ditch features here and there. They already did that with the $400 digital only version for those people that don't need an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. That is a good option if you go digital only or you don't have a Blu-ray movie collection. And in my opinion, the console does look a lot sleeker without that big old disc drive sticking off the side like I have on mine. Though the truth is, this plan isn't already in place and doesn't look like it will help gamers to get a PS5 this year, which could play straight into the Xbox Series X and Nintendo Switch Pro's hands. I don't think so. T3, who's the journalistic platform that made this article, they're in the same boat. Microsoft can't produce enough Series S's and X's to sell them. It's not like they have a surplus of them or anything. They're selling them as they produce them. They're literally coming off the manufacturing plant, getting sent out to the third-party distributors or vendors like Walmart, Newegg, Best Buy, Amazon, and then they're immediately selling out. Whether that's going to actual consumers or scalpers, that's the same issue with PlayStation 5, but it's not like the Xbox Series X is not in the same boat, and it's certainly not like the Nintendo Switch Pro, which, by the way, the Nintendo Switch that we currently have is a 4-year-old console, and that is selling neck and neck, tip to tits with the brand new Series X and PS5, which are substantially more powerful, especially because the Nintendo Switch runs on a mid-grade cell phone Tegra CPU. However, the Switch Pro, I'm not going to get too much into it here, will be running on an NVIDIA chipset, will have PS4 Pro-like performance in its dock configuration, and a 720p OLED display with higher battery life in its portable configuration. That is going to be incredibly hard to come by. The Switch Pro is going to be as hard as a PlayStation 5 to find, if not more. Now, don't get me wrong, the Series S and X are still very hard to come by, but I was able to lock in my Series S several months before getting my PS5 and my 3080. So it was easier to get that, but that's not saying they're easy to get to. You can't just walk into a store and readily buy a Series S or X, and you're not going to be able to for several months. But I will say the PS5 is more sought after and harder to get. And then that leads me to this next sentence right here. With disgruntled PlayStation gamers turning traitor due to not being able to buy the console that they want. No, that's not happening. No true PlayStation fan that had their heart set on getting a PlayStation 5 is going to be like, well, I can't get one in 2021. I'm going to go buy an Xbox Series X. No, they're going to stick to their PS4 Pro or their PS4 Slim that they already have or their PS3 Gloss Thickie, and they're going to wait because they want to play the exclusive games. They want access to the DualSense 5 controller, the Pulse 3D headset with the Tempest audio engines. They have their mind and heart set on the games, the exclusives from Sony. They're already in the ecosystem. All their PS4 games are going to be able to be played. A lot of them upscaled with HDR and ray tracing baked in, additional trophy support, stuff like that. So I don't think any true Sony fans are going to be like, well, I'm going to get an Xbox now because they can't get their hands on one, especially considering they're not going to be able to just go get an Xbox either. So this sentence doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So yeah, some exciting stuff if it does come to fruition. This actually does get put into action by Sony, and I do think it is a good idea, but I don't know how they're going to implement it, considering, like I said, I'm sure during the production phase, they had already thought about a lot of this stuff and probably don't have extra silicon parts packed in there that they can just ditch without losing features. I think they're going to have to strip off some features, which is unfortunate. But I guess good for people that own the legacy PS5 and have a special edition, first edition one. Makes it a little bit more rare. Maybe the resale value will be higher on it. Not that I ever really plan on selling it, but I don't know. We'll see how they implement this. It's exciting, but I don't know how realistic or feasible this is for it to happen. But hey, article sourced or cited down there in the description below. Drop in the comment section below your Stallion and Stallionette opinion of what you think is going to come of this. Is this going to be a thing? And what features in the PlayStation 5 do you personally think they could remove that aren't that big of a deal? Like I said, the audio drivers, they could taper back on that a little bit, but still, like I said, if you've experienced a PS5 game with the Pulse 3D headset, then you're probably not going to be a big proprietor or fan of losing that either. Yeah, but I mean, that's the only feature I could think of that I could not be pretty upset losing. You know, like ray tracing, we need that. 120 frames per second, we need that. SSD, we need that. Whew. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover a lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.